It has been a couple months since I did one of these kitchen vlogs. I think the last one was when I was vaccinated. I'm well. Nothing is going wrong here, but I have been very, very busy. First, a little backstory. 6 years ago, I dug up all my lawn, all of it, all the grass. Then I laid down pieces of natural sandstone. In the gaps between the stones, I planted diamondia. It's a drought-tolerant ground cover. And my yard was beautiful, and it was easy to maintain. There was no lawn to mow. I loved it. The diamondia did need trimming once or twice a year, otherwise it would grow over the stone and hide it. It only needed to be watered once a month, so maintenance was easy, which is what I wanted in my retirement. Then, a few years ago, the gophers moved in. Gopher mounds were popping up like pimples on a teenager. Okay. Maybe that's not the best way to put it. But the gophers made a mess of my yard. I tried different kinds of gopher bait that was, quote unquote, supposed to eradicate them. It didn't work. One former friend said, and I did this, he said to put cat poop in the tunnels. He has cats. He gave me a whole bunch of cat poop. The smell of potential predators was supposed to drive the gophers away. I tried it. Didn't do any good. Finally, exasperated, I started removing the diamondia and filling the gaps with cement. Actually, mortar. It's called mortar, to be exact. The gophers can't dig through that, right? Excuse me a moment. I didn't bring out my glass cup. This one will be okay. Okay. Along the way, I also re-leveled some of the stones because the gophers had caused some stones to sink, and that caused ponding when it rained. Not that it rains here in California. More on that in a bit. It was almost amusing. Several times when I lifted a stone, there was a tunnel beneath it, sometimes more than one. And in some cases, it was a major tunnel, well maintained and looking like it was used a lot. Now, I've been doing something to deal with that. I have a shop vac that I bought for cleaning under the juniper tree outside my deck. It drops lots of debris on my sandstone, especially when it's windy outside. I tried raking, I tried sweeping, but with the diamondia growing there, it was difficult to pick up all that debris. The shop vac worked perfectly. It works the best. So what I've been doing lately is preparing the gaps between the stones to be grouted with mortar by using the shop vac to suck up the loose dirt. It works, but I need to clean the filter often. That's okay. Then I run the dirt through a sieve to sift out the rocks and other stuff like the diamondia roots, and I've been saving that sifted dirt because I knew I'd need it. And that's what I'm using to fill the gopher tunnels and level the stones again, at least those that need it. Now, most of my yard is done. Lately, I've been working on a drainage area along the back edge of my yard. Just to explain, it's an area known as, quote unquote, the easement. It's a utility easement. That's where the utility lines run underground. Water, gas, electric that power the homes, right? I used to maintain that easement. When I first moved in, there were flowers in there, mostly poppies. Then I planted an herb garden. Some like to say herbs, but that's another matter. I say herbs. Most of us here in the USA say herbs. Anyways, around 20 years ago, the home on the other side of the easement changed owners, and they were awful people. When they worked in their yard, they'd trample on my herbs, eventually killing them all. Then they started to expand their planting area by encroaching upon my yard. That's when the wars began. It was awful. When they tried to take 3 feet off the back of my yard, the manager and the park owner got involved. Those bad neighbors were put back in their place. But as a peace offering, I gave them part of the easement. Okay, it wasn't what I wanted to do, but you try to make peace where you can. Now that easement is no man's land anyways. It's officially park property. It's not my space. It's not my neighbor's space. And it's, I don't know, maybe 3 feet right up to behind all the homes, the spaces. However, whoever wants to maintain it, pulling the weeds and so forth, can take possession of it. And that's how it originally came to be mine. 2 years ago, those awful neighbors sold their home. They moved away, and that's another story. Basically, the woman upset almost everyone in the park. Part of the complaint was her barking dogs. We're allowed one dog. She had 3. There were other problems, some of which involved money. There were threats of a lawsuit against her. Anyway, she sold and moved to another state. And the new neighbors, they are really, really nice people. Really nice. We talk once in a while. The woman who lives there, Kenya is her name. I remember her name because it's like that country in Africa. But anyways, because they're really nice people, I saw my opportunity. I took back the easement. And they don't garden. They're not yard people. There's a weed problem out there, but they're not interested in working in the yards. And they're not trying to have a garden, flowers, vegetables, or anything. So I took back the easement. And that's where the drainage comes in. When I first landscaped my yard with stone, the rule, it still is the rule, that all runoff must drain to the road. And the plan was to cover that easement with stone in such a way, like a trough, kind of a V shape all the way down, in such a way that to channel the rainwater to the street. But with it only partially covered now, which is how it is, the water drains through the neighbor's yard, and I don't want to take the risk of property damage. So that's what I've been working on the past few days on that easement. I work when it's cloudy outside, which is mostly in the morning right now here lately. In the afternoon, that part of the yard is in the shade because it's to the east, the sun is in the west, so I can work then as well in the afternoon. When it's done, the easement will be fully covered with stone, and it will be mine to maintain because it'll be my stone, right? No one can remove that stone because I bought it. I paid for it. What else? Well, this is the fun part, but I'm going to have to leave you for a moment, and I'll be back in a bit. Okay, I'm back. A year or so ago, I watched some YouTube videos about container gardening. Basically, this is what they said: anything that can be grown in the ground can be grown in a container, like a 5-gallon bucket or larger. Watering and fertilizing are necessary, of course, but it's a way to have a small garden without digging up the yard. And the gophers can't get to the plants. Now, my first year, I experimented with a Roma tomato plant in a bucket, a 5-gallon bucket. And I learned something important. Romas are quote-unquote determinate. They're determinate plants. The plant grows, produces fruit, then dies. It has one life cycle, one season. This year, I bought an early girl tomato plant. It is an indeterminate. It grows and grows, producing fruit all season. And if it isn't killed by frost in the winter, it can survive to thrive another year. This is Southern California. The risk of frost here is almost non-existent, so I'm thinking I might be able to keep this plant going. And that leads to this, the reason why I went outdoors, or the reason why I had to leave. Ta-da! This is my first ripe tomato. And by the way, the early girl gets its name because it starts producing fruit early in the season. At last count, there were 22 tomatoes on the plant, pretty near all of them green. I've got 2 that are this color and 1 almost this color. And I can show you this is what the plant looked like before I harvested this tomato. The plant is doing very well, and I should probably point out that I learned a lot about tomatoes by watching YouTube videos. Soil conditions, fertilizing, watering, pest control, etc. Plane going overhead. While that's going overhead, I will also tell you that, waiting for that plane. Okay, if you do it right, you can get a beautiful tomato plant. My plant started as just a little like sprout in a little plastic pot that I bought at the garden center at Home Depot, right? So now what does this tomato taste like? Well, I'm about to find out. Let me get a napkin here just in case it squirts any juice. Maybe I should cut a piece, or should I just bite into it? I'm going to bite into it. It's juicy. I'm going in again. Oh, that is delicious. I swear, nothing beats the flavor of a vine-ripened tomato. It's not like those tomatoes that you find in the store that, what are they, 75% plastic? I hate those tomatoes they sell in the store. Although you can get some nice Roma tomatoes at Costco. But they're artificially colored. I mean, they pick them when they're green, and then they expose them to a gas that turns the skin yellow, so they're not fully ripe, right? So, oh, this is good. I could keep eating this, but I'm going to save the rest of this until after I do this video. Another sip of coffee, though. My last sip. Okay, what else? Some of you know that I have another video channel on YouTube. It's my Mobile Home Gourmet channel. I used to do a lot of cooking videos, but then when the pandemic hit, I mostly stopped because I didn't want to go into the grocery stores. I didn't feel safe in the stores. Well, now I'm fully vaccinated, but with all the work I've been doing in the yard outside, I'm too tired every day to do videos. And besides which, my fingernails look awful. Even though I wear gloves, dirt gets under my nails, and I have a brush to brush them out. I try to keep them clean, but they look too dirty to appear in a cooking video. I don't want to be like seen cooking with dirty hands. However, I should be done with the yard soon. My goal is to be finished by the end of July. That might not be possible, but I'll be done soon after that. Today is July 6th, and I started this work on March 15th, the Ides of March. And I got to tell you, when I started, because I had been so out of shape, sitting in front of a computer all during the pandemic, I would do like about 7 to 8 pounds of mortar mix per day. Now I can do a full 60-pound bag, and I've done 90 pounds in a single day. My stamina is building up. So all the side out there is done. All the front out there is done. The area in front and alongside my shed on that side is done. There is only the easement to finish. I'm working on that. And then the backyard, part of which is done. So I see the light at the end of the tunnel. No pun intended. Gopher tunnel. Get it? Shame of myself. All right. Finally, I said I would mention the drought. Well, it's a mess here. We had very little rain this past winter. If I remember correctly, there really was only one significant rainstorm. The The rest of the time, if there was rain at all, it was just brief showers. Some of California is suffering serious drought, the worst in decades. It's bad here, but at least our water comes from wells. Eventually, the county will impose water restrictions. They haven't yet, but when they do, with no landscaping to irrigate, I'll be okay. My biggest concern is the fires. The high voltage electrical lines to this area that give power to this area, they're up in the mountains. And when wildfires burn up there, we can lose electricity. It has something to do with the smoke causing arcing, and then the power goes out. And the power can be off for several hours at a time, sometimes more than a day. And fire season is just starting here. There might be more to report during the fall months because with this drought the way it is, there's got to be a lot of dry brush up there, a lot of stuff ready to burn. All right. So anyways, that gets you caught up with my life, such as it is. In coming months, after the yard is done, I hope to return to making videos, not only my mobile home gourmet cooking videos, but these kitchen vlogs as well. So hopefully you enjoyed catching up with me, and thanks for watching. Now I'm going to go finish eating my ripe tomato.